Hey guys, welcome back to CodeTubs. Today we're doing a tutorial on how to read emails using Gmail API in Python. So I'm going to show us and I'll demonstrate how you can retrieve your email data. That is, this kind of data comprises of the body of your email, and you also have the sender, and you also have the subject of your email. So now I'm going to show us the different most common terms that we have in Gmail API. The first most common terms that we have is the message. We also have the threads. The thread is a collection of related messages forming a conversation. We also have the label, and as well we have the drafts. So under the label, the label comprises of the system labels and we have the user labels. So now we're going to look at the Gmail system labels. So the Gmail system labels we have is the inbox, we have the spam, and we have the trash. To know more about the Gmail user labels, you can go through developers.google.com/gmail. So you can read through and get to understand what the user label is all about. So what we need to do next is we're going to break down what we want to do. So these are the three things that we need to do. We first need to set up a Google account. Then we to retrieve our client ID and client secret. Then next we move to our code. So we do this one after the other. So let's move to the first one, which is to set up your Google Cloud Console. So before we move into our video, please, if you're a new user that is just coming to this channel who haven't subscribed yet, or you're an old user who haven't subscribed, please click on the subscribe button and as well click on the notification bell to be aware whenever we drop any helpful content like this. So now let's move to what we want to do today. So what we're going to do now is we open our Google Chrome, then we type inside our browser, we put in console.cloud.google.com. So just like what I did here, so it's going to open this particular page for you. So now we're going to do all the setup to generate our client ID and client secrets. So the first thing I'm going to do is we need to create a new project. So let's click on new project. So let's name this project my Gmail. So click on create. So mind you, there shouldn't be any special character whenever you're typing your Gmail name. So I already done that. So this is creating for us. So I click on select projects. So we can see my Gmail data here. So next thing we're going to do is let's go to the navigation menu. Then we click on API and services. So we click on enable API and services. Under the search bar, so you search Gmail API, click on enter. So you double click on it. So you click on enable. So it has enabled our API. So we go to create credentials. So let's click on it. Okay, so we can see under this create credentials, we're going to select and create all the necessary details that we need to add under this console. So here you can see it's asking you should select an API. So we're making use of the Gmail API. So now the next thing is we click either we want to select the user data or application data. So this is trying to tell us like the kind of data we want to access. So I'm going to click on the user data. So I'm going to click on next. Then I type in my app and my app name. So I'm going to write Gmail data, my Gmail data. So I'll put in my email address. Then the next thing is you have the email address again. Then click on save and continue. So here is where we're going to add our scopes. So this scopes is basically what we're going to use. That is, adding the scopes is what we're going to use inside our code. So there are different scopes that came with Gmail. So the one we're going to make use of is the read only. So click on add or remove scope. Then we search, just type Gmail. So it's going to bring it up. You can see all these different scopes. You can see modify, compose, and all. So let's click on the read only. Then we select this checkbox. Then we click on update. So it has added it. Then we click on save and continue. So next thing is we're going to select our client ID. That is the application type we are working with. Are we working with a web app, an Android app, Chrome app, or anyone we're going to use? So the one we're going to use here is we'll select the desktop app. We'll put in the name. So let's just type in same name that we used, the one we used earlier, my email data. Then we click on create. So this is where we're going to generate our client's ID and client secret. So what we do is we click on download. So this is what we're going to use. This particular client secret is what we're going to use inside our code. Because without this, this is just like a password to gain access to our email. Because without it, we can't use the Gmail API at all. So now we're going to, I think we are done with everything. We click on done. Yeah, so we're done with everything. So let's move down to the let's click on credentials again. Let's just check everything that we have here. Let's look at the OAuth client secrets. Okay, so we need to do one particular thing, which is a test user. We need to add a test user, so we won't have any issue trying to authenticate. So now let's click on, let's add our email as a test user. So let's click on save. So my email has been added as a test user. So yes, so this is everything we need to do here. So let's just go to our library. So basically don't have anything to do again. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move now to our code. Here, this is my VS code. I'm going to make use of my VS code as a IDE. So you can see my tabs here. You can see the credentials. I renamed the file I downloaded earlier as credentials. Then I dropped this under this folder. So now we also have the libraries. So I'm going to explain each and every of these. So what we need to do is before we start anything, we need to install the Google Client library. So from what we have here, I'm going to drop this below. So you can use it. You see it under the description. So this is what you're going to use to install the Google Client library before you do anything. Because without installing the Google Client library, you definitely can work with this API. So these are the libraries we're going to make use of. So I already imported all these different libraries. So each and every of these libraries, we are going to make use of it in our code. So you remember we defined a scope earlier under the console. So you see this scope, we need to add it inside our code just to make the API recognize we are using this read-only scope. So now let's move further to our code. Let's write a function on what we need to do. What we need to do is to actually know how we can read our emails. That is, if we have our email data, we can be able to know the subject of the email. We can retrieve all those particular sender email address, and we can retrieve the body text, that is the body of our email. So that's just basically what we want to do by reading the email. So I'm going to show you how you can go about that. So let's define a function first. So let's define a function called my emails. So let's define our credentials as none. We're going to give a full explanation of this later. So what we need to do is, there's something they call token. We don't have it yet in our code, but we're going to write a particular if and else statement so to generate that particular token. So what we need to do is we're going to check our path if it exists. So put token.json. And this is telling us that if this particular thing exists, then do this. And we say our credentials, that is this particular credentials from here, from authorized, then we put in our scope. So just type enter. So that's that. So what we're going to do next is we're going to check if the particular token is invalid. That is, here now is checking if the path exists. So next thing is if the credential is invalid. So next thing now is we are going to create another else function. So here we can see like we are saying if the credentials exist, that is from this os.path. So we authorize it, then we put in our scope. So here is checking if the credential is valid. If it's not valid, then it refresh the token for us. That is, it generates a new access token, or let's say client secret or whatever. So now we're going to use the else. This else is going to handle the part whereby this particular token doesn't exist. So we're going to use flow is equal to, so let's put in the scopes. So we already defined our else. That is what we did here is we said we use the credentials, then we pass in the scope. So next thing is we're going to generate our token. So here is using the credentials just like we said now. So let's use the token. Let's generate a token here. So we use with open the file. So we do as token. So here we're going to use token.write. So now here is going to generate token.json. So this is very good. It's just like when we have the credentials, or maybe when we don't have it. Sorry, when we have the credentials or when we don't have the token.json. So here we don't have the token.json, but whenever we run this code, it's going to generate our token.json for us. So that's just what it's going to do. So let's see if we can run it, and let's see what it's going to give for us. So let's use my emails. So let's run our code on the terminal. Do python app.py. So let's run this. So now you can see like it's actually send us back to the browser. We'll click on our email. So this is trying to authenticate. So let's click on continue. So it's telling me like email that is Gmail is trying to access so thing. Then we click on continue. So let's close this window. You can see this is our token.json. That's just what we need to get. So you can see we've already authenticated. So let's just push this down and move to what we want to do. So let's move. So now we're going to use the build. That is just to tell the Gmail API what exactly we want to do. So we're going to make use of the service.build. So we say service is equal to build. So we put in Gmail, put credentials is equal to we use this particular credentials from here. So just like what we did there, so whenever it's running this code, since we have the token, so it's going to run this exact parts. So no, it won't run this with open again because it will check if we have the token. So whenever it finds out we have it, let's say from here, so it's going to run from here. So it's going to check if this exists. So whenever it says like it exists and the what they call it and the credentials they are valid, so it has no reason to run all this. So the only thing it needs to run is this. So after it has run it, then it comes to this service. So service build Gmail, then the rest. So let's move. Then we're going to use the service.users.messages to access all our message. So let's call this results. So pass the dot execute. So this is just like what we need to use to access all our messages. So next thing is let's call these messages. Then we say results get messages. So we indicate what we want to get from these results. It should be there. So but we need to loop through it. Let's say for hi messages. Let's move. Checking what's inside. So let's get the payload. That's the next thing. So let's do txt. So and check all the payload. So and we also need to extract our headers. So these data are quite so we put our headers inside. Use the payload to extract the headers. So let's do for hi in the headers. So under these headers we can extract our subjects. So before we move forward, I think the best thing for us to do is let's create an empty list. So where we can append all our data. Let's say we have the subject, we have the senders, we have body of the email. So we can just append all these values inside here. So let's put body is equal to this. So we already created that. So now let's move. So from inside this data, we already said for hi in this. So if we say if I in name, because I think that's why I want to see what's inside here. Is actually want to see what we have inside before putting anything. And it will be very good for us to add, try, and accept just in case we run into any error. So let's put the accept under here. So let's do accept. So let's put the error inside here. So I'm putting this particular error here. So let's see where error is coming from. Yeah, so you can see it's catching the error. So I think this is where the error is coming from. You can see these credentials, or let's move up to check where exactly it's coming from. Okay, you can see build Gmail version 1. So this should be credentials, not capital letter. So let me run this again. Yeah, you can see what you have here. So let's just stop this. Control X. Yeah, Control C. So you can see what the data looks like. You see we have name, we have value. So this is from the header. So what we need to do now is we are going to check for this name. So we're going to look through it, that is if I name. So we're going to extract the values. So that's all what we want to do. So we're going to do that now. So at least we have a glimpse of what the data looks like. So let's move and go back to our code. So you can see we have name inside. So if I name, so what we need is the subject. Let's check if I name is equal to subject. You can see we have subjects, we have different instance, we have from, we have to, we have subject, we have thread topic, so we even have dates. So we can extract the dates, but what we just need here is the subject. So we say if I name is equal to subjects. So we're going to append the value um inside this particular place. So we defined empty list. Yeah, so we append it inside that empty list. So we say hi, then we put the value just like what we want to do. So we put the value inside that particular empty list. So next thing we do is we use that particular name again to get a sender. So we're going to say if I name, once again, I name. So now we're going to put, let's create sender. Then we had, so just like what we did earlier, that we pick the value. So we pick the value from here. So next thing is you append as well. So let's look at what we created. We use sender. So you say sender. Let's make these senders. Senders dot append sender. So that is we are putting our value inside. So now we've been able to get our subject, we've been able to get the sender. So next thing is we're going to get the what they call it, the body of the email. And the body of the email that we need to get, we must know like it is encoded. So that's why we're using this base 64 for it. We can use this base 64 to decode all the data that is coming from there. So the data is not exactly what we can see, or like just like what is printed out here. So we need to decode it before we can make use of it. So let's move into it. It's just like what we did here, we use the payload as well. So the data is under this payload. So what we do is we use the parts. We take the first item. Now, if I'm going to check, this data is not going to look clean. So let's verify that. Print parts. So we can see what it looks like. You can see this data is not exactly what we can use. So we need to decode this particular data. So let's move into how we can decode this body of our email. So let's take this part. Let's check where the data is. You can see that we have body. You can see the body. You can see is a JSON file, just like what we did earlier, that we put the name and all. So we extract, we take the body and we take the data. So let's put in the body. It's going to be replaced. So let's do that without wasting our time. So let's do data is equal to data dot replace without wasting much of our time. So the code data, let's call this the code data is equal to, so we use base 64. Base 64 comes with Python. You don't need to install it. So you use base 64. So you do base 64 decode, base 64 decode, then you pass in the data. So after we are done with that, we append inside the empty list that we call body. So we put the code data inside it. So now let's print and see what our data looks like. Let's print the body and see what our data looks like. So you already appended it. Let's print and see what it looks like. Okay. So from what you have here, you can see all these datas. It's actually dirty. The best thing you can do is clean. At least you can see some of these text. These are the texts that came out of it. So all this data can be pre-processed to a more cleaner form. So just like we have our subject, I think let's print out what our subjects and the other ones look like, and the sender. Let's look at what each of it looks like. So this is the body of our text. Let's see the other ones. So you can see what you have here. You can see. So this is most of my subjects. So let's check the sender. So you can see this is the sender. I already cut it. Sorry. So this is the sender. So I actually don't want to open my email. That's why. So this is the sender. And that's what it looks like. So you can actually do a lot of things with this Gmail API. So there are some of things you can do is you can as well search. You can use the search you can use the search option under the Gmail API. So you can make use of that. You can do a lot of varieties. So it's not just limited to reading. You can get drafts, you can get your sent mail, you can get any kind of data that you intend to get from the Gmail API. So I hope this tutorial was helpful and it's actually help you know how you can read your email data using the Gmail API. Thanks for watching. I would love to see you next time. Please don't forget to click on the subscription button and as well click on the notification bell to be aware whenever we release any new content. So I would love to see you next time.